यस्त्यक्त्वा रूपमाद्यं प्रभवति जगतः अनेकधा अनुग्रहाय प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिः विषमविषधरः अनेकवक्त्रः सुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिः भुजगपरिकरः प्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः स वो व्यात् सितविमलतनुः योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। So, good morning everybody. Last time we completed the sutra Atha Yoga Anushasanam. We saw the first sutra of Patanjali, where we saw what are the different components of the word Atha, what is the meaning of the word yoga, and what is the meaning of the word Anushasanam. Today we will begin the second sutra Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodhaha. This sutra is the second sutra of the Yoga Sutras, and it is called also as the Lakshana Sutra. Lakshana Sutra is the name given to the sutra which is defining what is yoga. What is the Lakshana of yoga? What is yoga Lakshanam? What is the quality or the characteristics of yoga? That is why it's called Lakshana Sutra. That sutra which describes its qualities. Since this sutra is describing the qualities of the state of yoga, this sutra is called Lakshana Sutra, and this is why this sutra is considered as an important sutra, because it is defining what is yoga. So Patanjali is defining what is yoga. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha. This is what he is saying. We will try to understand the meaning of this sutra. Patanjali is using the word chitta, and therefore what is called chitta vritti, and then he is using what is called nirodha. Nirodha is the verb in this aphorism. Chitta vritti is the kind of the medium through which the state of yoga is achieved, or the state of yoga is experienced by the chitta vrittis, or what should we do with the chitta vrittis, etc. is defined. Yoga is the subject. Yoga is defined as the nirodha of the chitta vrittis. So let us try to understand this in different ways. A few things are need to be understood first. First of all, why has he used the word chitta? When we understand this, this opens a lot of clarity to us to understand what is yoga, or who is capable of being in yoga. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, in the yoga philosophy, there are many words that are used for the mind. In English language, we use the word mind. Very simple translation, mind. But in Sanskrit, the word mind has many different possibilities. Patanjali himself gives us many possibilities. The word chitta is a particular kind of mind. It is not any mind. So in the yoga philosophy, we say that there is what is called the Bahya Chitta and the Antar Chitta, the external minds and the internal minds. So let us try to understand this first. Now, from the point of view of Sankhya philosophy and yoga philosophy, mind is a medium of perception. Mind is a medium of perception. How do we perceive? When we look at an object, how do we perceive? We are perceiving mainly through senses. The eye sees something, the nose smells something, the ear hears something, etc. We are perceiving through senses. But why is it that we see something and we don't see something else? Why is it that we see some things and not something else? So there must be somebody who is behind these senses, but who is close to the senses, who is perceiving. This mind that is close to the senses is called Manas in Yoga and Sankhya. Manas is that mind that is close to the Vishaya. That's why we are able to see some things and not other things, because the mind is telling the senses, hey, look at this, don't look at that. Now, but not only that, the moment we see something, we perceive something, we do another step. What do? We are identifying it. We are defining it. This is a car. This is an auto. This is an animal. This is a cat. Not only are we identifying it into what is called the jati, the category, but we are also identifying within ourselves. This is my car. This is not my car. This is my dog. This is my neighbor's cat. We make identification even with ourselves. Any object we see, we have a capacity to identify and put it in different boxes. That mind that puts it in these different boxes is called ahankara, asmita. Sankhya philosophy calls it ahankara, mind. Yoga philosophy calls asmita. We are putting things in boxes. This is my child. This is my neighbor's child. This is my dog. This is my cat, etc. That mind that is doing the next step of perception, which is to perceive and identify. The mind that is identifying is called asmita. But then what do we do after identifying something? After identifying something, we are basically analyzing. This is good for me. This is not good for me. I like cats. I don't like dogs. I like the color red. I don't like the color red. This car is old. This car is new. We start to analyze. We start to evaluate. The mind that is analyzing or evaluating, that is called as buddhi. Buddhi, ahankara, manas. These are three basic external minds that we all are functioning. And for functioning in the normal society, these three minds are essential. We are first of all given an identity. The moment you are born, you are given an identity by name. Parents name us. There is an identification. Gender identity is done. Name identification is done. In India, we are also identifying based on religion or caste, etc. We make identifications. And we are functioning based on all these identifications. We are analyzing constantly. Why do we ask people when we meet for the first time, what is your name, how much salary you earn, do you have children? We are asking very very directly what religion you follow, because in our mind we want to put them in certain compartments, then decide how we will communicate with them. The buddhi is processing that information with all the identities, and then based on persons we will communicate in that particular manner. Buddhi, mind, is the intelligent mind that is doing this processing. But all these, according to yoga school, are external minds. There is minds that are more internal. This is where chitta, pratyaya, sattva are three kinds of minds that are coming. The chitta mind is a deep mind. The word chitta comes from the origin chito bhavaha chittam, the mind that is close to consciousness, not the mind that is in the head, the mind that is close to the consciousness that is in the heart mind. Chito bhavaha chittam. The mind that is close to the heart, what does it do? This mind has the capacity for holding a focus. This mind has the capacity to hold a connection. We make a connection, and it does not matter when you make a connection what logic says. For example, when somebody is in love with another person, it could be a child, it could be a lover, etc. When we have this love for somebody and we feel so connected, rational does not matter, because the connection is very deep. Rational does not matter, because we don't judge that person anymore, because the connection is stronger. So that's why the chitta mind is the mind that has the capacity for a deep connection. The capacity for a deep connection without judgments, without bias. That's why when we are in love with somebody, we don't see the faults of that person. The connection is stronger. Love can also be between friends. You have a very good friend, very old, long time friend. They may have defects, but you accept them with the defects. You have a deep connection. You share a connection. Doesn't matter some of the defects, you don't see them. The chitta mind is that deep mind that has the capacity for connection. Deeper than that mind is the mind that is called pratyaya mind. Pratyaya mind is a mind that transcends all boundaries. Pratyaya mind is a mind that transcends all boundaries. Many of us, we function through boundaries, definitions. But take, for example, the dream state. In the dream, we transcend all boundaries. Sometimes we can be a flower in the dream. Next moment, the flower can become a bird and it can start flying. Next moment, we can become a fish and we can start swimming underwater. Now, all these are a dream. But the body experiences it as reality, because whatever happens in the mind, it triggers the body for that hormones, etc., blood. You are running in the dream, you are breathing fast when you wake up. You feel tired because it's as if you have jogged. So, the mind is also capable of being in a fluid state, which is not boundary, very efficient mind. That mind can exist either in the state of dream or in the state of dhyanam. That's why Patanjali, when he defines dhyanam in the third chapter, he uses that word, tatra pratyaya ekatanata dhyanam. The word is used is pratyaya. Samadhi, fluid mind. It's not possible for us to be in a samadhi state when we are bound by so many restrictions. Dhyanam, samadhi are all free states, fluid states. Same way, there is a much more deeper mind that is called sattva, a silent mind. A mind that merely reflects whatever is in front of it. Classic example is a lake that is very, very quiet. When a lake is very, very quiet, whatever scenery is behind that lake is reflected exactly in the lake. There is no distortion, because the lake is silent. It reflects. The same way, when the mind is silent, it reflects whatever is in front of it. That sattva mind is what is the mind that is capable of helping us be in a state of kaivalyam, freedom, absolute freedom. That's why when Patanjali defines Kaivalyam, he uses that mind, Sattva Shuddhi Kaivalyam. Sattva Purushayoho Shuddhi Samye Kaivalyam. Sattva Purusha. Sattva represents mind that is in Sattva state. Purusha, Drashta. Shuddhi Samye, they are both similar. They are so clean. They are so quiet. They reflect each other. That is Kaivalyam. So, Patanjali is using different words for the mind in different contexts. This is very, very important because yoga is defined using one particular word of the mind that is called Chitta. Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Patanjali does not say Mano Vritti Nirodha. Patanjali does not say Buddhi Vritti Nirodha. Patanjali is saying Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That means he is giving us a clue that the state of yoga is possible only through the Chitta and deeper minds. Where is the proof for this? When you read the second chapter of Patanjali, towards the end, you will see that the Pratyahara and Dharana are defined using the word Chitta. Pratyahara and Dharana are defined using the word Chitta. Dharana. Desha Bandhaha Chittasya Dharana. Chittasya Dharana. So the word is used as Chitta for Dharana. Dharana is already Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Tatra Pratyaya Ekatanata Dhyanam. Pratyaya Ekatanata Dhyanam. The word used is Pratyaya. A more deeper mind is what is capable of meditation. Tadeva Arthamatra Nirbhasa Swarupa Shunyamiva Samadhihi. Tadeva, there only, in that Pratyaya mind only, you go further Samadhi. So Samadhi and Dhyanam are part of the Pratyaya mind. Kaivalyam, Sattva Purushayoho Shuddhi Samye Kaivalyam. Sattva mind is the mind that can take you for enlightenment. So, a question we have to ask ourselves is, who is capable of doing Chitta Vritti Nirodha? Who is capable of being in the state of yoga? That we have to ask. The answer is very simple. The person who is able to engage the Chitta mind. It means yoga is not intellectual. Yoga is something which we have to feel. It's a connection. Yoga is a connection. That's why when you do understand this statement, you will never say, I am doing yoga, because yoga is a connection. I am engaging with yoga. I am being in a state of yoga. You are not doing. Doing is an action that is done to something. Here you are living it. You are living. Yoga is not intellectual. Yoga is a feeling. It has to come from the heart. That's why my father called the book Heart of Yoga. It's not the mind of yoga. It is also very important to understand this because it's the drashta, it's the consciousness that is engaging in the yoga state, and therefore a mind that is close to the consciousness is what can make this happen. So that's why the Chitta is used in this context. It's very important for us to understand why the word Chitta has been used in Patanjali. It's because if we want to engage with yoga, we need to cross that external mind and go into the subtle mind. So yoga process is a subtle process. That's why if you saw a couple of sessions ago when we talked who is ready for yoga, Atha, we talked about different qualities, of which one of them was lack of fear. What prevents us from engaging with the deep mind is basically fear. Why are we afraid to connect with the heart? Is because of fear. It makes us vulnerable, and we don't like to be vulnerable in this world. We like to be strong, or at least give the impression we are strong, but in reality we are not so strong. The moment you connect with the heart, actually you become stronger. But this we don't know because we are afraid. Fear is the boundary that separates the external mind and the internal minds. That's why when we saw Atha few sutras ago, or the last sutra, you see that one of the Atha is readiness. The person who is ready to engage with the heart. That's why the word Chitta is used. Then comes Chitta Vritti. The Vrittis of Chitta. The Vrittis of Chitta. The activities of Chitta. Vritti is defined as a Vyapara. In Tamil we say Vyabaram. It's a transaction. Chitta Vritti is a transaction. Mind has a possibility to transact. Mind has the possibility to transact. Now when we say it has a possibility for a transaction, how many entities are needed? At least one or two. We need two, because you can't transact with yourself. You have to transact with two entities. So this is what is meant by Chitta Vritti. There is a transaction with two different entities. So what are the two entities? And this is where yoga is very brilliant. Yoga philosophy puts mind in the middle. Mind is one of the transactors. And mind can transact either with something in this direction or with something else in this direction. What is this direction and what is this direction? One direction is external direction. What is outside? Objects, people, Vastu as it is called, Vishaya as it is called. Patanjali uses the word Vastu, object. We transact with objects. People are objects. Animals are objects. Products are objects. So, mind can move in one direction as a transaction. This is our daily action. We work with people. We interact with people. We communicate with people. We communicate with our neighbors. We communicate with our pets. We communicate with objects. Some people use the iPhone, iPad. Sometimes we use computer, etc. We are interacting with objects. We drive our car. We are transacting with objects, Vastu or Vishaya. This is the movement of mind towards the external objects. But Patanjali says, well, there is an external object possible, but there is also an internal object that is possible. That is Drashta, consciousness. Our self, what is in the heart. That is called as Antar Vishaya, the internal object. So, we are able to engage with either the external object or the internal object. This is possible. Mind has the capacity to do that. There is only one small problem. We can only do that with one at a time. Patanjali clarifies this in the 4th chapter. Eka samayecha ubhayan avadharanam. Anavadharanam. Eka samayecha ubhaya anavadharanam. We cannot be with two at the same time. It's like if you are focused on one thing, you cannot focus on the other thing. If you focus on external objects, it takes you in one direction. When you are focusing on the external, you cannot focus on the internal. When you focus on the internal, you cannot focus on the external. Just a simple metaphor. Either you can be inside this room or you can be outside this room. You cannot be inside and outside this room at the same time. You have to choose. Do you want to be inside this room or do you want to be outside this room? In the Vedic philosophy, they say the only person who can be both inside and outside is Ishvara. Antar bahischa tat sarvam vyapya narayanaha stitaha. The only person capable of doing both is the divine Paramatma. Nobody else is capable of both being outside and inside. So, yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha is a state where they say nirodha means to withdraw. to restrain. A lot of people misinterpret this as yoga is the process of having no activity of the mind. It's actually wrong. It's the process of moving inside, disconnecting from the outside. The mind that can relate with external objects is buddhi, ahankara, manas. The minds that can relate with the internal objects, chitta, pratyaya, sattva. Therefore, when chitta is active, buddhi cannot be active. You cannot have intellect and heart active at the same time. Either you open your heart or you connect with the mind. You cannot have both. You cannot analyze and open your heart, connect with the heart. When you are analyzing, you are disconnected. So that's why they are saying yoga is a process of withdrawing from the connection towards the external, so that the connection towards the internal is facilitated. What connects us to the external object is raga, desire. Patanjali also says this, tad uparaga apekshitvat vastu jnata ajnatam. Vastu jnatam, you want to know an object. I want to know something, I must have raga, desire to know that. If I don't have desire to know something, I will not know it. So if I want to engage with something, there must be a desire to engage with that thing. So raga is what facilitates us to the external object. What is facilitating the internal object, the direction? Vairagyam. So Patanjali says in the first chapter, Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tan Nirodha. It's detachment from external objects that will take us inside. So that's what Patanjali defines as Chittavritti Nirodha, is the activities of the mind are in a very subtle position, in a delicate position. They can either move one direction or they can move another direction. They cannot do both. It's like pulling somebody from both sides, you will destroy them. The mind will be destroyed if it's pulled in both directions. It's not possible. So Patanjali is saying, well, Chittavritti Nirodha is disconnection from this direction, the external direction, so that the internal direction is active. That is what is Nirodha. Nirodha is not complete absence of activity. A lot of people define yoga as the cessation of the activities of the mind. It's the cessation of external activities of the mind, activation of the internal direction of the mind. So yoga is not a passive state. Yoga is a very active state. So that is what is the concept of chitta vritti. What are the mind doing? Vritti is a transaction. Mind can transact either with objects or with purusha, drashta, the one inside, who is in the heart. We have to choose what is our choice, which direction we want to go. Life can be in either in this way or in this way. We can say, we can choose either this path in life or this path. The same way yoga is a choice. Are we going inside us or are we going outside us? So this is one idea that is very, very significant. Another idea that becomes very significant to discuss is the word Nirodha itself. The word Nirodha is basically defined as a state of mind. There are different possible states of mind. Vyasa clarifies this. Kshiptam, Moodham, Vikshiptam, Ekagratam, Nirodham. There are 5 different states of mind that we can be in. The first is called the Kshipta state. Metaphorically, this is called as the monkey mind. Now, what's the quality of a monkey? The monkey is jumping from one tree to the other. It's jumping from one place to another. The same way, the Kshipta mind is the mind that is jumping from one focus to another. For 5 minutes we want this, for 5 minutes we want that, then some other object, then some other object. The mind gets distracted again and again and again. Gets jumping from one place to the other. In modern era, this is what we are like. We are having so many distractions. You go to a shopping mall, this object attracts you for a few seconds. Suddenly there is another big poster there for another object. You go there, then some other object is attracting you. You switch on the TV, there are hundreds of channels. You keep switching, zapping. We used to be called Homo sapiens. Now we are Homo zapiens. We are zapping the channel so quickly. This is Kshipta mind, mind that is jumping like a monkey. We are existing sometimes in this state. When we have panic, when we have a lot of stress, we exist in this state as well. Kshipta. This is not yoga. This is the lowest state. Then comes the next state, Moodha. Moodha is the origin of the Tamil word muttal, dull. Dull mind. Mind that does not move. Mind that does not move. It's so heavy. So heavy. Sometimes because of fatigue. Sometimes it's just because the mind has got the quality of being slow. Sometimes when you are very, very exhausted, you take a long flight, or you have worked so hard that you are so tired, you become so dull. This mind is called Moodha. It's very interesting. Not only Tamil word muttal is coming from this, the German word mood is also coming from that, because that is also dull, tired. Moodha is the Sanskrit word, dull mind. This is a mind that is dominated by tamas. It's not moving, it's heavy. The second state of mind, this is also a low state of mind. Then comes the mind called Vikshipta. Normally we are having this mind. Mind that is in a state of distraction from time to time. It is not jumping so much like the monkey mind, but a mind that gets distracted. So we are doing our work. Suppose we are cooking in the house. Suddenly we hear the neighbors fighting. Immediately our attention goes to the neighbors. But then we come back to cooking. Then some other thing happens on the street. Immediately attention goes there. It's the same when we are doing a job, when we are working in an office. We are working, we are focused. Then we hear the boss coming or the boss arguing with somebody. Immediately our attention goes there. Gets distracted. Then we are able to come back. This is a mind that is getting distracted, but also has the capacity to come back. That's called Vikshipta. This is the normal mind that many of us have in the day-to-day living, except when we are Moodha or in Kshipta state. More refined than this is what is called as the Ekagrata state. Ekagrata, Ekam Agram. Ekagrata means one-pointed mind. We are focused. We are very focused on the job. Boss is arguing with the colleague. We can hear it, but we don't get distracted. We hear the neighbor arguing with the child. We don't get distracted, but we are aware of it, but we don't get distracted. We are continuing. This is what is called Ekagrata, the mind that is in the state of attention, attentive mind. Nirodha is further. The word Nirodha comes from the origin Rudhir Avaranet. It's like an envelope. It's like a fort. It's like when you're inside a fort, nobody from outside can come in, but neither nobody from inside can go out. The word Nirodha is also in Sanskrit a synonym for an envelope. You put a post inside an envelope. And when you put it inside an envelope and you seal it, nothing from outside enters inside, nothing from inside goes outside. Nirodha state is such a state. It's an advanced state of ekagrata, where you are so involved, what we call absorption, so engaged with something that you don't even hear or perceive other things. See, in ekagrata, you hear your boss complaining or fighting with it, but you're not distracted, you're still focused. You hear your neighbor, but you're not disturbed. In Nirodha, you are completely engaged in something so intensely that you cannot even hear or perceive anything else. You are so much in attention, so deeply engaged that nothing is distracting. Nothing is distracting. That is what is Nirodha state, the highest state our mind can be in. That's why Patanjali defines yoga as Chitta Vritti Nirodha. When the mind is engaged with the deep self in such a attentive way that no other distraction is happening, no other distraction is happening, that is considered yoga. Please remember, it does not mean that we have to reject objects. Just because we say the external is disconnected, it does not mean that we are rejecting objects. What we are meaning is that the external is not pulling us. We decide which object to engage with. We mean the drashta is deciding. The consciousness says, I want to be in a relationship with this object, I want to transact with this object, no other object has to interfere. So we are focused only on one object without any distractions. That's why my father interpreted the sutra as Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha as this capacity for us to be so focused on one direction, one object, without absolutely any distraction, because only when the link comes from the heart can you not be distracted by anything else. If your connection with somebody is based on rational, if a better logic comes, you will change focus. You want to engage with something based on logic or rational. If there is a better logic, you will change. Say, for example, you are interacting with a colleague in a workplace. Now, you are in a workplace not because of love, but you are in a workplace because the rational is good. It gives you good salary, gives you a good opportunity. But suppose, if this is the reason, you are working with a colleague, that colleague is your friend or colleague. If a better opportunity comes, you change the job, you have a new colleague. Whereas if your rational is that you are working, you're friends with this person not because of a job, because of something very deep. You are in the job because of something which is very deep. You don't care about other opportunities. You are very committed to the job, to the place where you are, and you stay there. Rational doesn't come because the connection is very deep. That's why this is a very big challenge in modern times, because in modern times, in this world we are living in today, we are not taught how to connect with each other. We are disconnected from ourselves. So how can we connect with another? We are taught mostly to be intellectual, rational, because many of our thinking is coming from the modern Western philosophy. It's not coming from the Asian philosophy, which is talking as the old traditions, not only Asian, the old traditions is all talking about connection. Whether you take the Indian Vedic culture, or you go to Australia and you look at the native culture there, or you go to the New Zealand and you see the Maori elders there, they all talk about connection to the heart. Nobody talks about rational intellect so much, thinking, rationalizing, because the engagement of the external mind is not always the only option. We can also engage with something deep. That is what is yoga. Yoga, in this context, if you look at it, yoga is the capacity for us to engage with a deeper mind and use that deeper mind to relate with different focuses in our life, so that there is a connection that is established, a relationship that is based on connection. That's why my father also used to say yoga is relationship. See, when you are in a relationship with someone, with husband or wife or children, you are not in this relationship usually because of logic. You are in the relationship because of deep feelings. The feelings hold you. It's not rational that holds you. Husband earns more money, therefore you are in relationship with the husband. It's not like that. If the husband earns lesser money, still the feeling of connection will keep you in this relationship. Similarly, child is doing good in school. Child is able to dance very well, sing very well. Therefore, I am in relationship with the child. That's not how we are relating with our children. We are relating with the children because we have a connection with the child. Whether it's doing well or not well, it doesn't matter. We are in that relationship with the child because of the connection. So in reality, we are experiencing yoga in certain areas, but we are not extending it to all areas of life. That is why today yoga is not so easy, because relationship is defined nowadays differently. Relationship has become a transaction. Relationship has become a transaction, and that is the problem. Whereas in Patanjali's definition of yoga, yoga is a relationship that is based on a deep connection, based on not external transaction, but based on a more subtle connection. So when you look at this definition is simple. Yoga is a connection. Yoga is a state of being connected. And this is consistent with the root meaning of the word yoga, yuji yoge. Yuji means to connect, to link. So that is what Patanjali is reminding us. The lakshana of yoga, the defining quality of yoga, is that we are in a state of connection from the heart and with the heart of other beings as well. That is why in Indian tradition, we are usually putting the hands together and wishing each other, because what we are saying is, I am wishing you from my heart to your heart. When we say this word, namaste, namahate, that means I am saluting you from my heart to what is in your heart. And that is what is the meaning of namaste. And this in some way is yoga. It's a connection between oneself and whatever we choose to connect. So in a simple way, yoga is a heart to heart connection.